Welcome to the second episode of the Bulldog Briefing. I am your host, Zach Schottler. What makes someone a strong leader? Is it their charisma, their intelligence, their decision making, or even their upbringing? Unfortunately, many in our society believe that leadership is only for the chosen few. Too many people believe that leaders are born, not made. The truth is that leadership is a skill that can be taught in much the same way as reading and math. And I would argue that it is the most important skill that we can give our students. I know that I learned many valuable lessons about leadership growing up in a family business, but those lessons were crystallized when I took a course in graduate school that focused on Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. We will all lead in some form, and our most important leadership position will be the role that we hold within our own families. I am excited to talk about the leadership topic with our guests today. I want to take a moment to introduce you to my panel. We have excellent leaders on the panels today. I have high school principal Tom Daly. Thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
I have senior student Bree Conaway. And I have our high school social studies teacher, Mr. Jason Hansen. So I want to kick off the questions by talking to Mr. Daly. Last year, when you were named the principal of the high school, one of your first goals focused on creating an opportunity for students to learn and improve their leadership skills. Why was that a priority for you?
Well, you never actually know when a moment's going to arise or an opportunity is going to come forth where you're called upon to be a leader in some capacity. And you gave a good example in the introduction of talking about being a leader with your family, because that's the most important leadership roles that we're all going to have at some point in our lives. But there are always other things that come up. If there's an accident that you witness on the highway and you have to spring into action and do something, if you see somebody that is not being treated fairly or in the right way, and there you have to take action to try to stop that. These opportunities come up. We don't know when, and it's just the right thing to do. And having some training, some skills to be able to do the right thing, I think is very helpful.
Now, do you believe that leadership skills can be taught, or do you think some people are just inherently born a great leader, or is it somewhere in the middle?
I think that leadership skills definitely can be taught. I think that some of the things we talked about last year in our class, students started to realize that being a leader involves communication, and it involves the ability to work as a team. And I think that those are all things that we can do and we have naturally ingrained in us. And it's just an opportunity in these courses to practice those and realize, yes, I can do these things. I've always done them. Maybe I just need to do them better.
Okay. I want to get more in depth with your program when we go around the second time, but I want to get to Mr. Hansen. Jason, you and I have had a chance to work together now for, this is our 4th year already. And ever since we instituted the leadership program, you have taken part in every class, and you've been a huge asset there. Why do you think it's important as a teacher to keep growing as a leader, and then how do you take those skills and put them into your classroom?
Well, I definitely believe I should, if I'm going to talk the talk, I need to walk the walk. And I've always, prided myself on challenging myself as a teacher, as a father, as a son, as a husband. And the leadership course really gave me an opportunity, and it really forced me to reevaluate the decisions I make, why I make them. I think that, I'm trying to model this behavior for my students. And if they see that I'm participating and I'm constantly bringing up the leadership course, probably ad nauseum to the students, and they realize that, I'm taking it seriously. I think it's easier to teach them if they know that I'm taking it seriously, and they've been very receptive because of that.
Read a great quote on Twitter today by Todd Gongwer. He wrote the book, Lead for God's Sake. He talked about the coaches always tell their players, hey, when we come back next season, I want you to work hard and be better. But how many coaches are actually taking the time to model that themselves, that when they come back to the office, when they come back to the practice field, what have they done to get better? And I think
I agree wholeheartedly with that. The idea, if I'm going to expect something from you, I wouldn't expect anything from somebody that I wouldn't expect from myself. And I think the leadership class has given me that opportunity to do that with my students, and has made me a better teacher, I think.
And good modeling is going to beat a great lecture any day. So I think what you're doing is excellent, what you're doing for our students and our staff.
Thank you.
Bree, from the student's perspective, as part of this briefing, we always like to get the administrator, the staff member, and also the student. What leadership opportunities have you had at Bridgeport?
I was voted team captain of the volleyball team this year, so that was definitely
It's
a
a big
big
honor.
one. Yeah.
So you're team captain. What are some of the responsibilities of a team captain as far as being a leader? What's something you do that somebody else on the team may not step up and do?
I help keep the team up, definitely, because if someone gets down, everyone goes down. So I definitely keep everyone up. If there's a problem, most people come to me because I'm closer to them in age. If the coach has something they want to say, or while we're playing, she'll tell me and I retaliate it to everyone else.
I think that's important. You talk about the relationship piece. And to be a good leader, you have to have close relationships with everybody on the team.
Definitely.
And the negativity is just like a rock rolling downhill.
Yeah.
Once you maybe start losing a game, or once somebody says something nasty about somebody else on the team, it's very easy for it to get going with a lot of
Yeah.
strong momentum. And that's where somebody like you
Yeah.
comes in.
Definitely, because if you're fighting on the court, everything's just gonna go down. So I step in. I'm like, guys, come on, we're fine. I can call a timeout if we're like really struggling. So
And I don't think people from the outside always realize the amount of strength that it takes to be a positive influence. You see things on social media and so much negativity that the person that sometimes stands up and say that's wrong, believing each other is right, sometimes
Yeah.
they get some ridicule.
yeah,
But I think that's why it's important to have team captains and leaders on the team. And you also made a good point about relating better to the other students, because sometimes, as good of a job as a coach can do, he needs somebody or she needs somebody that can relate to the players
yeah,
from a student-to-student level.
definitely, yeah.
Great job. Mr. Daly, just to kind of break down, what have you done, with the high school students to develop that leadership period?
Well, everything kind of started with a shift in scheduling. We kind of had to set aside a specific time when to do this, but at the same time, we didn't want to take away a lot of time from the courses that we know have to be taught throughout the day. So we developed a new schedule, which basically set aside 1 hour in the morning for us to do this type of thing, and we try to do it once, maybe twice a month. And that gives us the opportunity to do this because, again, I think this is important. School is about, the traditional 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic, but if we want to have successful kids going out into the world, it's more than just being able to study and pass a test. You have to be able to work with people, and you have to be able to relate to them, and in some instances lead them. So we developed that schedule. Last year we studied Maxwell's book, and that book gave us a good opportunity to look at what are the qualities of a leader, and do I possess these qualities? And if the answer is yes, can I develop them further? And if the answer is no, how can I go about starting to develop those qualities? That gave us a good groundwork for leadership, I think. Surveying students at the end of last year, it came about that a lot of them were concerned about self-confidence. Some of them even reiterated that, yes, it's one thing to tell us how to be a leader, but I'm not confident to be a leader, or I don't have opportunities to be a leader. So this year when we moved into Rose's book, Go Fearless, that's an opportunity for us to build the confidence in our students to go and now do something, to actually be a leader. And along with that, we do want to give opportunities for them to show some leadership skills, whether that be speaking in the class, going in the community, and doing something. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
It's almost a two-pronged attack. You have to have the content, and then you have to have the opportunity for them to display it.
Right.
Mr. Hanson, you've been a part of this now for 2 years. How do you feel like it's going? And then what are some things you'd like to see take place to get it more integrated in just the daily classroom?
Well, first off, I think it's a great decision on the district's part to push this forward. As Mr. Daly said, we talk about the 3 R's, but I firmly believe that if you can lay down a good framework, the 3 R's take care of themselves if we have good leadership and if people feel confident in themselves. And I've really learned through these classes too, is that, and it kind of reiterates what you said in your opening statement, Mr. Shuttler, and that is that you can learn this. This isn't something that you're born with. And I think as a history teacher, we talk about thousands of examples of historical figures who've done great things.
Yeah.
But if you look in the background, there's probably somewhere in their life they learned these skills. They weren't. It's not in their DNA necessarily, because their children aren't necessarily guaranteed to be leaders as well. These are things that the culture that you create creates leaders. And I think this is the first steps that we are taking now at Bridgeport to do that, to create leaders, and we're giving them opportunities. I think for many, as a teacher, starting out, I think you want to follow a script, and you want students to follow that script because it feels safe. And these classes, both for myself personally and I think for the students, they're realizing we're slowly giving them more and more opportunities to display leadership skills. There's going to be failures with that, but those successes, even those little successes, I think will go a long way in making future leaders.
And this is the same, you're part of the Fluency Project as well, where we talk about more project and product-based learning. There's always a fear that if you stray too far from the standard instruction that you're going to lose students on the curriculum.
Yes.
Knowing that leadership skills can be taught, there's obviously some data you can derive from this type of instruction. How can you derive data from not just standardized tests, but also the leadership opportunities?
I mean, visually watching students. The key thing is, first off, you have to build a culture of trust between the teacher and the student. This year, in conjunction with the literacy or the Fluency Project, I've had to step out of my comfort zone, doing a lot more project-based learning. I've known, since graduate school that project-based learning is important, but I don't think it drove my instruction. Now I'm trying to put the ball in the court of the students. That's very uncomfortable for me. But if I want to be a leader, I need to get out of my comfort zone, try to grow. And the students, I think, respect that because I'm willing to fail in front of them. I encourage them to try, and if they fail, I tell them it's okay. That's how life is. I fail all the time. And I think that lets them to go ahead and take more risks because they don't feel judged. I mean, school should be a place where we can make those mistakes before we have to get out into the quote-unquote real world. And these types of project-based learning allow them to do that. It gives them a place to safely experiment and try to cultivate these qualities that we're so adamant about them having.
Great answer, Jason. Thank you. Bree, we have the new book this year, Go Fearless. What's one aspect that you've taken from the book that has helped you?
I really like the aspect of your fear never goes away. Even if you think it does, it's always back there lurking. And I think it's good to be kind of nervous because it shows that you care and you want to do good.
So what's something that you can do to help control that fear so you can move forward?
I definitely think the more you do something, the better it gets. Public speaking, for example.
Case in point.
The more you do it, the better you get, and you learn how to hide the nerves,
Yeah,
I feel
it
like.
becomes familiarity. And then as you're doing it, you're growing along the way.
Yeah. I'm a cadet at Wolfhurst, for example.
Okay.
So outside of school, that's where I volunteer a lot of my time. And I never used to go on very many calls because I got nervous because I don't know as much as everyone else. But the more you do it, the better you get, the more familiar you are with the trucks and everything.
And then part of being a good leader, all those things that you're learning, you're going to be able to give back
Exactly.
to a cadet like you one day.
Yeah.
That's awesome. As we kind of move towards the closing, I'd like to get each of your definition of what you believe leadership is, and then we'll follow up with, where do we go from here? Mr. Daly.
I think leadership is very simple. It's knowing what to do, when to do it, and how to influence others to do the same. And what those things are, the what to do, when to do it, those are fluid. Those can change depending upon the situation. But I think it's important, too, that we realize that in talking about leadership and learning about leadership, that another important thing that comes along with this is knowing who to follow.
Yes.
Because we're not always going to be the leader, and there's always going to be those trying to influence us, and we can learn who we should
And if you
follow.
have the ability to influence, doesn't necessarily mean you're influencing people for the right reasons,
Correct.
the right way.
Right.
Your definition of leadership.
That segues, I think, perfectly to my definition, and that is doing the right thing even when you know it's hard. When people know they're going to be popular and people are going to accept the decisions that are made, to me that's not really leadership. It's when adversity strikes or when people start questioning you, being able to stand resolute and firm and be confident in your decisions, despite the backlash that you might receive. To me, that's what good leaders do. You know, not everybody, again, to use the historical analogies, you know, George Washington wasn't always a popular person. Abraham Lincoln by far was not popular during his time. And sometimes our best leaders aren't appreciated until they're gone. And we admire those qualities that they had. Unfortunately, it's a little too late sometimes in historical purposes.
Yeah, it's usually not the quality of he or she went with whatever way the wind was blowing.
Correct. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Bree, how would you define leadership?
Well, I think a leader is you want to definitely be someone that somebody looks up to. And like you guys said, you want to be able to make those tough decisions, even if it makes you look different. You can't be afraid of what other people are going to think of you. You need to do the right thing if you know it's right.
Correct. That's very good. But the bottom line is I think we all have to look for those opportunities where we can be a positive influence on somebody else. And if we make good decisions and if we know who we can go to help us make those decisions, then we're creating a pattern to where we're helping other people grow and develop. And if we're open about what we don't know and we're looking for other people to help share, you know, then look at the culture that we build and the relationships that we build, and then you really cultivate a strong team. Where do we go from here? Where would you like to see it go, Mr. Daly?
I kind of mentioned earlier that, you know, we want to get those opportunities to lead. It's kind of like practice. You know, create those opportunities for our students like we did with John last week and Bree this week. Bree didn't hesitate at all to say that she would do this. And I don't think John did either. I don't think that's John's nature.
No,
but
John did a great job just
he
like
did
today.
Right, both did a great job. So these are opportunities to do that, and this is, you know, it's like practice. So I want to see more opportunities, whether that be in the classroom or you know, school-wide or out in the community. If we can find things for our students to do to practice their leadership skills, I think those are our next steps.
Bree, you're coming towards the middle of your senior year. Where do you see leadership going for you in the future?
I definitely feel like I'm going to stick with the department and go to college. And so I have all these great leaders that I can follow and that I know will help me through it. And I really hope that this continues through the years of high school and even lower if it can go down to middle school, because I think this is a really great thing that we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, we're hoping that if we get these programs in place and that we keep tweaking and growing them, that this will be something that's all the way through the district, and that by the time you get to be a senior, you're getting the leadership experience by the reading, by the mentorship from your teachers, by the support at home, and then, like Mr. Daly said, giving some opportunities to actually do some real-world leadership. Where do we go from here as far as a teacher's perspective?
Where do we go from here? I think we have to continue the enthusiasm. You know, I think with any program, everybody, you know, is very on board at first, and then as time goes by, I think, you know, it has a tendency to start fading away. And I think that, you know, having students like Bree and John come out and do these things, that's contagious. Just like negativity can be contagious, I think people showing leadership, you know, when they start seeing their friends doing these things, why not them? You know, if Bree can do it, then why can't I do it? And I think those are the kind of things that we need to continue to support and promote at the school.
And I saw some things on the state flyer recently where they're going to try to encourage leadership skills, social emotional skills. I don't know how that will look from a state perspective, but it is encouraging that people realize that much like math and reading, that leadership skills can be taught if they're supported and cultivated. And I don't think that does anything but enhance the 3 R's. And I could talk about this subject all day. It's something that I am very purpose-driven about, and it's something where I'm trying to grow and improve and striving to become a better leader. And I hope some of the methods that we're trying inspire others to read and learn and grow and talk to other people about leadership. So thank you guys. Great discussion today.
Thanks.
Nice job. Great discussion today. I appreciate everybody coming out. That's our Bulldog briefing for November. We're still working on the script for our December briefing, but I'm sure we'll have an interesting discussion. So thank you. And the production crew, Mr. Davenport, thanks for putting this together. We appreciate it.